it's my 3-year ampuversary, which is a lot like an anniversary, except you have to chop something off first. For me, it was my left foot. When you go through something as major as amputation, it can take a long time to establish a new normal. For me, it's only been this past year that I feel like I've finally reached anything remotely resembling a baseline. Let's break that baseline into 5 categories. First off, pain, which I'll subdivide into phantom pain and non-phantom pain. When my leg was amputated, I was surprised by how quickly my residual limb healed, relative to how long it took to recover from my many foot surgeries. I had some lingering pain on the front of my tibia where the bone had been beveled. It's an area that also gets extra pressure when walking in a prosthesis, but my doctor said to give it time and eventually it would simmer down. Sure enough, it did. 3 years later, and I'd say the leg itself has days where the muscles feel a bit achy, but it's tolerable. I do deal with chronic pain throughout my body, especially in my back. I'm not sure how much of that is a result of spending a few years as a full-time wheelchair user, or because having one limb missing puts extra strain on the rest of the body, or maybe it's just because I had complex regional pain syndrome. Though thankfully I was able to receive some groundbreaking infusions that made the symptoms go away. I don't know whether my level of chronic pain is typical or not for a below-knee amputee, but I can tell you that my pain is fairly consistent these days. I'm not experiencing wild ups or downs. I've come to a point where I've accepted that I probably will always have some pain in the mix, but at least right now it's at a level where I can function, and that's something I'm deeply grateful for. Phantom pain has been interesting. Right after amputation, it was very intense. Then 7 weeks later, I turned a corner and the phantom pain got much better. By 6 months post-amputation, I could hardly feel my phantom foot, which was delightful. Then I got complex regional pain syndrome for the second time and was once again a full-time wheelchair user, and my phantom pain came back with a vengeance. Ouch! To treat that phantom pain, my doctors and I came up with some strategies that I haven't really heard other amputees talking about. I'll be making a separate video about it, so click the bell if you don't want to miss it. But for today, let's just say that phantom pain has been a work in progress. It's not as absent as it was 6 months post-amputation, but it's not nearly as bad as it was a year ago. Pain is only one aspect of my medical situation, so let's zoom out for a moment. Amputation had a domino effect on the rest of me. For example, being sedentary in a wheelchair and being on heavy medications seems to have done damage to my metabolism. I have some specialists who help with that, and I still go to physical therapy quite often. Most of that time is spent trying to get overly tight muscles to loosen up by using things like suction cups, dry needling, and generalized torture. I'm being tortured. That's why they call it PT. It stands for patient torture. It's ouchy, but it's made a real difference. I've been very grateful to get off the million prescriptions I used to be on. Okay, it wasn't really a literal million, but it felt like it. I've had some injuries, but I'd still say that overall, my health is the best it's been since amputation. I suspect that for the rest of my life, I'll continue to be more prone to injuries and medical problems than if I hadn't become an amputee. But at the moment, my overall health is relatively stable, even if it isn't perfect. When you lose a limb, you experience grief, pain, and a lot of change. So it's not surprising to also experience depression. For the first couple years after amputation, I was on antidepressants and I've gone to counseling, both of which were helpful. The other factor was time. Have you ever heard of Honic Adaptation? Basically, research has shown that after positive events, such as winning the lottery, or negative events, such as a major loss, people tend to return to their baseline for happiness. This past year, I feel like I've returned to my personal baseline, though perhaps I'm a little older, wiser, and more tuckered out after so much drama. Just like with pain, I'm not experiencing extreme highs or lows with my mental health. I feel stable, which is a good place to be emotionally. I just wish that there is hedonic adaptation for physical abilities. My overall function will never be what it used to be, but it's better than it was a year ago. I've finally been able to start using a prosthesis more. I still don't use a prosthesis constantly. I tend to wear it when I go places, then take it off when I get home and switch to my wheelchair. A nerve injury has made it so I can't wear my prosthetic leg all day, but I can wear it long enough to get things done. Nerve injuries can take a long time to heal, but I'm cautiously optimistic that I can increase my prosthetic use, even if it's a slow process. On the upside, I've been making good on my New Year's resolution to start biking again. Even on days when walking isn't working well, I've been able to bike because I'm sitting down the whole time and my leg isn't supporting my whole weight. I'll be making a video about it soon, but the goal was to go 2,024 miles in 2024. Speaking of New Year's resolutions, my other two resolutions were to make more shorts, which I've been doing, thank you very much. And the last resolution was to get a running leg, which I finally got, and I've been putting it to good use. If you want to see what I've been up to, stay tuned. The rest of life has also settled into a new normal. Most of the random facets of life that were impacted, such as relationships, finances, and my living situation, have settled down. Just like with everything else on the list, I'd say perfection hasn't been realistic, but I do feel like a baseline has finally been established, which is a pretty good feeling. When I lost my leg, it felt like life was in free fall. Now I'm on solid ground. Maybe it isn't perfect ground, but it's stable enough that I can work with it. I don't know if there's any such thing as a typical journey for an amputee. By definition, if you're an amputee, chances are life has not gone according to plan. I am no exception. My first couple years, especially post-amputation, I had a lot of major setbacks. I wasn't able to use my prosthetic leg very much, and lots of drama. There's a playlist if you want to know about it. But I feel like this third year is the year where I've finally been able to get a handle on things and move on with life. If I were to sum up year 3 of being an amputee, I'd say it's been a time of establishing new baselines, acceptance for what I can't change, and gratitude for the improvements that have been made. I'm Stephanina, and if you want to learn more about amputation recovery, I have a very thorough playlist right here. And thank you for joining me on my amputee adventures.